Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Green Room for DisrupTV. We are here live with my awesome co-host, co-founder, Bala Afshar, and of course, our guest. We always introduce our guests in reverse order, and we ask them where they're coming in from, and of course, what they're talking about today in a short 30-second clip. And of course, we go from there to our intro. So welcome, Ranjay Galati. Welcome to the show. Where are you coming in from today, and what are we talking about?
I am here from Boston, Mass, from the campus of Harvard Business School, and I'm here to talk about my new book, Cambridge. Technically, Harvard Business School is in Boston, Mass. We are across the river.
That's right.
It's a very important point to note.
Yes.
The Charles River divides us. It's just a 200-yard walk, but theoretically, my mailing postal address is Allston, Massachusetts.
Yes.
So here we are.
With the best cafeteria of any university I've ever visited.
Okay, I will not disagree with that. It's too good. I actually honestly feel they should dial it down a bit, you know.
I love it. And it's an attraction. When I visit the campus, going to the cafeteria is one of the highlights of the day for me. Anyway, thank you for joining us.
Forget semi-glutides. We'll all be good at the cafeteria. We've also got Marty Kahn.
It's the Spangler building, for those of you listening. It has the most unbelievable menu you can ever imagine, and I love it. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Also, Marty Kahn. Where are you coming in from, and what are we talking about today, Marty?
Yeah, I'm Marty Kahn. I live in New York, but I'm coming to you from Minneapolis today, where it's freezing. And I also have a new book, this one on something called Agentforce, which is an agentic AI platform by my employer, Salesforce. So I'm going to talk about that.
Good. Have you been to the Build Your Own station at the Spangler Hall? Just kidding.
No, I haven't, but I'm going to.
Marty, next time you're here, we're going to go. Next time you're in Boston, we're going to go.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, we're going to kick off the show, and Hannah, we'll do the count, and we'll kick off the show. And Ranjay, we'll put you in and on the screen as we go. So you're going to be on. We're going to be on for about 20, 25 minutes with Martin, and we jump in with you. Okay. So here we go. Let's roll. Oh, we're here.
Okay. 419 episodes. And I've never seen our intro clip keep playing. Anyway, hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us on DisrupTV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to follow us on X at DisrupTV. Show Sen Ray, myself, our distinguished guest, your questions live, and we'll do our best to answer them. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Ray Wong. He's the CEO, founder of Constellation Research. He's the best-selling author of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. I see Ray on TV just about every day. He's on Fox Business, Bloomberg, CNBC, all over the place. He's one of the most influential futurists to follow on X at RWANG0. Welcome, Mr. Wong, to Disrupt TV. Glad to have you here.
Hey, thanks a lot. I'm here with Bala Afshar, and as he mentioned, he's the Chief Digital Evangelist for Salesforce. He's also the author of multiple books, including Boundless and Autonomous. And of course, if you haven't read those books, we're talking about a brand new agentic era, and these are #1 sellers on Amazon. But executives around the world pay attention to every one of his inspirational, insightful tweets. And when he's not hosting, keynoting, or leading events at Salesforce, you can find him speaking on business TV outlets such as Bloomberg, ABC, and posting insightful analyses of this show on ZDNet and more. So, but it's not about us. We're actually got a very, very special guest. And in fact, I can't wait to hear his bio. Who do we got to kick it off?
He's one of my favorite people at Salesforce, person I go to learn. He's expanded my mind over the years. Even before he joined Salesforce, he was one of my favorite follows when he was at Gartner. Martin Kine, Senior Vice President of Strategy at Salesforce, and author of a brand new book, Agent Force. Harnessing the agency of AI to scale, grow, and lead in any industry. A must-read book. Never leave home without it. In a former life, Marty was research vice president at Gartner, where he wrote and spoke widely about marketing technology and advised numerous Fortune 500 clients on marketing strategy. He was my favorite person to read and learn from when he was at Gartner, and he continues to be at Salesforce. He wrote these long-form, incredibly technical, robust articles about digital marketing. And if I want to learn about what Salesforce is doing, I go to his LinkedIn posts because he has an amazing way of capturing the essence of who we are and why we do what we do. Marty also authored 4 books, including, okay, this is cool, House of Lies, which was adapted for TV by Showtime, and customer data platform, which we believe Showtime will pick up as well, use data to transform marketing and engagements. I wonder if Don Cheadle will play a role in his new Agent Force book. Fun fact, Marty was head writer for MTV series Pop-Up Videos. So what a renaissance, man. I mean, he's amazing. Welcome back, Marty, to Disrupt TV.
Yeah, thank you, Val. I'm very impressed with myself now that I hear about it.
You should be. You should be. And
I didn't realize.
The new book that came out in June.
No, this is the best, right? I mean, look, you're at the forefront of every trend, and now you're at the forefront of these enterprise trends that are happening. You were doing that at Gartner. Now you're doing it here. So let's just start by talking about the basics, right? You write a book. It's about Agent Force. What is Agent Force anyways? Is it a concept? Is it an idea? Is it a way of life? Is it a product? Is it a service? Like for you, what does that mean?
All of it.
It's a gestalt. It's a existential. It's a platform that was built by Salesforce to help enterprises, so enterprise customers, put together an agent factory. So to be able to create, test, deploy, monitor agents at scale, agents across the enterprise, so in customer service, marketing, et cetera, but to do it safely in a way that's trusted, grounded in first-party data, and all that kind of good stuff. So it's basically enterprise-ifying of these LLMs, the large language models, which were incredible advancement, are not applications. Large language models are infrastructure, and there's a lot of them. They're very impressive, but in order to put them in an enterprise context, you can't put up with what we would put up with as consumers. We ask it to do a recipe or workout routine, they make a mistake, no big deal. I'll try to improve my prompt. But if you're an enterprise, you're putting something in front of a customer, your entire brand reputation could be at stake. So you've got to harden it. There has to be an ability to do toxicity bias detection. There has to be an ability to mask personally identifiable information, make sure it's not shared and trained in the large language models, make sure there's an ability to ground in your own data, retrieval, augmented generation, and so on. So that's what Agent Force enforces.
So a system, in the journey of our company in the last 11 years, the AI journey really officially formally launched by Salesforce in 2014. In the last 11 years, we've experienced 4 waves of innovation in the space of machine learning. A predictive wave was wave 1. Wave 2 was the generative wave, which we were on long before the October 2022 awakening, where the world saw the ChatGPT moment. And now we're living through wave 3 and 4 concurrently, the agentic wave and the physical wave. And the physical is, the drones, humanoid robots, autonomous vehicles. So Salesforce has been talking about the Agentic Enterprise. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? And obviously, you've written an entire book that came out June of this year about Agentforce. But can you help our audience understand what we mean when we talk about the Agentic Enterprise?
Yeah, we do talk about it, and it comes from Mark Benioff. He's championed this. I think when I think of Agentic Enterprise, it's basically a vision of an enterprise which is becoming increasingly real, where there is a workforce that is a hybrid of human and agents, where technology has stepped up to the point where it's maybe not equivalent to, but it's partnering with human beings on the workforce, augmenting workforce. I think I like to think of the Agentic Enterprise embracing what I call the 3 A's. One is automation, so being able to automate workflows in a way that was better than previous generations of technology. Second one would be augmentation, so expanding the workforce. If you have customer service, you have a limited number of people who are doing CX, or in the call center, customer care center, and you wish you had more. There are calls you can't get to, or you put them in the phone queue, whatever. You can expand, augment the workforce. We're already seeing people do that. And the last one is around articulation. So I know PricewaterhouseCoopers, which acquired a firm that I used to work for when I was a management consultant, called Boozow on the consumer side, the commercial side. But anyway, Pricewaterhouse said 80% of customers will only buy from companies that personalize the experience. But on the other hand, about 90% of marketers say that data is their number one problem. So an Agentic Enterprise has taken steps to solve the data problem. So organize their data layer, and then on top of that, to enhance personalization using various techniques.
No, this is great, right? And we're actually seeing this. People want to get work. People want to get work done, right? And this is not about fluffy AI. It's not about all this stuff. It's about taking a business process, align it with an outcome, and then automating it, getting some level of acceleration, and taking it from there. And that's where people are using agents. But the question is, like,
I agree with you. I mean, agents are a way to make AI do work. I mean, AI on its own is something you could admire, but how do you put it to work in a company?
So are we now? So we're now in a business of manufacturing intelligence and work. It's no longer a tool we give to people so that they can use it to get job done. We're actually developing software that does the work alongside you.
That's right. And it's, as Shelley Palmer likes to say, this is the first time we've ever had consciousness decoupled from intelligence. So this is not actual consciousness. We're not at artificial general intelligence, but it is intelligence. And it's intelligence that's being technified. And technology is always supposed to help people. It's a tool designed for use for individuals. And that's all. That's when I think of agents, that's what they are. They're a tool that's supposed to help us do our job better. So they're not that mysterious. They are complicated, though.
It's not just the messy middle. There's a messy start.
Well,
messy beginning, middle, and end.
How do you get the concept to say, what are the right agents? Like, which decision trees do I collapse? What flows do I automate? What outcomes do I achieve? Like, how does that process begin? Because a lot of companies don't even know what they do to start with. So,
well, that's the problem.
That's a good point. Yeah, some are better than others, Ray, as you know. Some are more. There's a new book just came out, actually, even newer than mine, about patterns. So agentic AI patterns, and there are agents aren't that old. Even a year ago, we weren't talking about agents that much, but already in the past year, we've learned a lot. Everyone's learned a lot, and there are certain types of agents that come up. One might be a sentinel, so they call it, like monitor and react. So you could have it monitoring, streams of data. There could be another one, a presenter agent, which is more focused on the design optimization of the UX. There might be a curator agent, which is about synthesizing data, or even a coach. We're seeing like sales code, like an agent can give people feedback on verbal presentations. I think when companies are thinking about, how do I develop agents? Where should I look? Just look at what agents do well. AI agents do well. One is they can scale fast. So if you have any function where there's a lot of people, doing some of the similar kinds of work and it's repetitive tasks. This might be routine call center inquiries and so on. That's a good place to look at. Another one is searching. So if there's any job where you have people going through lots of information, example might be an old-fashioned chatbot or something. And then there's a screening one. So any process that involves filtering and screening, we see a lot of like job sites employing agents to do a triage of their applicants to try to put them in the right tier, or even like leads. So lead triaging on a website. And then another area might be around recommendations. So if there's anywhere you want to improve personalization, personal shopper, concierge, something like that. Those are all good areas to look at for agents.
Yeah, I mean, I know we support about 15 industries, multiple lines of business within industries. So we've got north of 200 agentic templates. So if you're looking for sales coaching or marketing or commerce or customer service, over the last 16 months, we've developed templates that and some of the personas you mentioned in terms of being able to serve in these various lines of business. But can you talk about how do you ensure AI agents are safe and enterprise ready? How do you make sure that agents don't drift from your brand promise and do things?
That's the key. That's the key. I mean, the very first thing that was built, even before we called it Agentforce at Salesforce, was something called the trust layer, the Einstein trust layer. And the whole point of the trust layer was, how do you want to police the LLMs? The large language models, they're not deterministic. So, and in fact, they're neural networks. So they're very complicated in between. So if you have an input and you have an output, you change the input, or even the same input could have different outputs, at different moments. And nobody's exactly sure, nobody, and they'll admit this, even PhDs far more intelligent than me are not exactly sure how they generated that output. They can't go through all the steps. So they have to be watched and monitored and policed, and agents have to be given a very narrow scope. The trust layer does things like, as I said, secure data retrieval, data grounding, data masking, personally identifiable information masking, prompt defense. So there's malicious actors out there trying to inject things into your prompt. There are ways to combat that as well. Detecting toxicity, detecting bias, and also, by the way, an audit trail. That's really important. So if you're using an LLM on your own, you may not have a detailed line by line inventory of exactly what happened. Like, what was the prompt? What was the response? What time was it? But all that needs to be maintained somewhere, and that's what trust layer would do.
And admittedly, when we launched agentic capabilities, we didn't have a way of testing. So the test center, and even evaluating multiple agents within enterprise, we didn't have a performance evaluation monitoring tool. So the velocity, the innovation, the speed and direction is unprecedented, so much so that when we look back at Salesforce, we recognize that there was some very important capabilities that we didn't have a year ago. I'm sorry, I'm admitting it live.
Yeah, nobody's perfect, Vala.
Doers make mistakes, and smart doers make original mistakes. So we're trying to make original mistakes, but it's important to admit that things are moving fast, and you learn as you go. And this is certainly an area where.
Well, one example is, when we started a year ago, we thought, let's have a lot of agents. So we'll have like a menu and we'll have thousands. And we realized it's actually much more important to do a few agents really well to focus on these patterns rather than doing 1,000 sort of half well, basically.
Right.
Yeah, no, but hey, so are there, I don't know, mistakes when you deploy an AI agent that we have to worry about? Are there things that we have to worry about? Do people duplicate tasks? Are people? I mean, like, what are things people should avoid, right? I mean, I mean, or is it the classic problem? Maybe the answer is the classic problem is, right, like, do you map out the future state process first before you build an agent? And you can do all that without deploying an agent, right? Is that where you guys are seeing the advantages or the opportunities?
Yeah, no, I mean, if you focus on the future state, I think the mistakes that are being made now, and it will change, the nature of mistakes change over time as industries mature. But basically now I think it's two types. One would be mistakes around the scope of the project, and then others would be mistakes around the scale. And by scope, I mean making it too broad, having an agent do too many things. I mentioned earlier that you keep them narrow, and I mean really narrow. Like, you can have an agent, you can string agents together, but have each of them focus on something small. Like if you have an expense approval agent, all it can do is like access the expense policy, and it can say yes or no or maybe, something like that. That's it. Can't do anything else. It has no access to any other data. So that's scope. And then the scale one is just having too many, starting too big, starting with trying to get the end state before you've gone to the testing, the deploying, and et cetera. And as Vala mentioned, it's important to do a lot of testing, even more testing than in another context, just because of the non-deterministic nature of these models.
Yeah, imagine onboarding a new employee. You have guardrails, you have sanctioned actions, you list the tasks that make up a particular job. Just imagine the process rigor of, you know, an intern that's now full time, and what that onboarding and that same process rigor and monitoring and coaching and grounding and all of that applies. And when it comes to scale, all three of us, we've recognized game-changing technologies and what it took to scale those set technologies. It was TCP/IP that helped grow the internet. It was HTTP that helped scale websites. And now we're in the process of early stages of what's the protocol or set of protocols that'll help scale Agentic Enterprise. And that's agentic to agentic orchestration. And as Marty talked about, stringing all these agents to do specific tasks with a holistic end state in mind. So there are certain emerging protocols, Marty, and we can,
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, the most widely adopted is MCP, Model Context Protocol, and I think it's developed by Anthropic. It's basically just a way to kind of standardize how you connect to data sources, or to make your data source available to agents. So you don't want point-to-point connections. Like if I have an agent, like I have Agentforce, for instance, and I want to connect to data source A, data source B outside my company, I'd have to set up, custom APIs and so on for each of them. But with something like MCP, you can standardize that process and it works nicely. The other one would be agent-to-agent protocol, which is a Google thing. And these are open source now. They're kind of available to everyone. But agent-to-agent, which is more about a way for an agent to communicate with another agent in a way they'll understand one another. This would be like my agent, company A, company B talking to one another. And the most recent that I know of is something called AdCP, which is more around the advertising use cases, and it is more nascent, but we have to start thinking about how agents can help advertising workflows too.
Wow.
Is your sense that all of these protocols will coexist? It's not one.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I mean MCP is the most baked. A2A is being changed as we speak. AdCP is really just starting. I don't know if anyone's actually using it yet.
No, and these protocols allow us to get to cross-platform multi-agentic AI, right? Ultimately, what we want to do is be able to take agents from other places. We want to know that they're safe, they're validated, they're credentialed, they come in and they can work with you. So I think that's kind of the cross-platform that people are looking for. But let's look out into the future, right? What will these agents be doing? Will they be running entire finance departments? Will they, be planning out massive supply chains and logistics? Will they be freeing up our time to actually create new ideas? Will they be where do you see that going?
Well, I see a lot of the routine work in an enterprise going away. I think there will be an impact on certain job functions that are duller, the kind of jobs people don't want to do necessarily, or they do in the beginning of their career and don't want to do again. But anyway, there's a lot of routine, and that's been true of technology for a while now. We've had automation, increasing automation. So I think there's that. In terms of intelligence and orchestration, I think we're going to see a lot more sort of cross-enterprise use cases where marketing and service are able to work more closely together, and realizing the vision of the CDP, customer data platform, like Data Cloud, but or sales and marketing. These departments have been either at odds or not coordinated in the past, and getting them to work together, I think, across to serve the customer experience from end to end, all the way from advertising through loyalty and so on. All of that's what companies have wanted. They want a coherent customer experience, but it's been very difficult. Technology is very focused on individual departments.
Very, very much so.
Marty,
we are entering a brand new era. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, my final question, will every business be disrupted by an agentic version of itself? Like, what is the
but the key is to you want to go ahead.
No, I was going to say, how do you compete with a company that has digital labor that has, infinite memory of all past interactions with a client, infinite understanding of all the current touch points with a client, and can scenario plan all these graceful, meaningful, high value possible engagements to be had with sales, service, HR, commerce, customer support. Like, how do you compete with an entity that can in real time have the contextual understanding of how to create value at the speed of need? I mean, are you an agentic enterprise or a dying one? I mean,
I think it's the innovator's dilemma, which is you got a business that works, and then somebody comes along who's not quite as good, but it's a lot cheaper, a lot more efficient, and they disrupt you completely. And the key, the way to solve that, as they say in the innovator's dilemma scenario, is to disrupt yourself. So make sure you're the one who's, and I'll give you an example. This week, I mean, the stock market didn't do so great. I guess it's better today, but Alphabet is doing great. It's like record highs, Alphabet, Google. And I know last year even people are looking at their search engine business and saying, oh, well, it's going to be obsolete. I mean, these agentic kind of anything like GPT, you could do search and so on. But they've succeeded in convincing the market, and I agree that the future of search is going to be Google. They'll be the agentic search agent, around using Gemini and so on. So they've in a sense disrupted themselves. I think that's the key. Disrupt yourself.
And it's easier said than done, but as our founder constantly reminds us, it starts with having a beginner's mindset. Be comfortable challenging dominant logic, and be adaptable, and be curious, free of prejudice. So I think it's something that we're constantly reminded by our founder, and it makes a lot of sense, more so today than any other time. Right?
So we're here with Marty Khan, SVP of Strategy, and more importantly, author of Agent Force, harnessing the agentic AI to scale, grow, and lead any industry. This is the agency that we're going to see going forward. And of course, this is going to be the beginning of the next revolution. Thanks so much for being on the show. And of course, I want to wax marketing with you at some other point in time.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks a lot, Marty.
Cheers. Thanks. Congrats.
Very cool.
Marty is a smart dude. And I'm not joking. Like, when I want to learn deeply about our strategy at Salesforce, I'm reading his work first. Okay, well, this is where best-selling authors come and share their wisdom, and this is our cleanup hitter spot. In light of the recent World Series, our next guest is going to come and hit a grand slam. Ranjay Gulab, Harvard Business School professor, social scientist, and author of a new book. The book just came out September, How to Be Bold, The Surprising Science of Everyday Courage. Right here. I love the title. Look at How to Be Bold. I love this book cover. Ranjay is professor of business administration at Harvard Business School. His pioneering work focuses on unlocking organizational and individual potential, embracing courage, nurturing purpose-driven leaders, driving growth, and transforming business. Ranjay is a recipient of the 2024 C.K. Prahalad Award for Scholarly Impact on Practice, and was ranked as one of the top 10 most cited scholars in economics and business over a decade by ISI Insight. The Economist, Financial Times, the Economist Intelligence Unit have listed him among the top handful of business school scholars whose work is most relevant to management practice. Ranjay is a Thinkers 50 top management scholar, speaks regularly to executive audiences, and serves on the board of several entrepreneurial ventures. He's the author of Deep Purpose, which came out in 2022, and How to Be Bold, which we're going to talk about, which was, again, published just a few months ago. Welcome, Ranjay, to DisrupTV.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. So thank you, Lana. Thank you, Ray. Great to see you both.
Welcome to the show. And one of the most interesting things for me was really the foreword. Did you check out the foreword, Bala? It was the Dalai Lama wrote the foreword to this book. And if there was any courage, the courage to ask the Dalai Lama to actually write the foreword, I want the backstory.
Now that's a bold move. That's a bold move.
I want the backstory on how you got his eminence to actually write that for you.
Look, sometimes, you put things out in the universe without asking for anything. I put it out not to ask for a forward. I really wanted to share it with him. I didn't even think he'd read it. I got an email address for the office of His Holiness And I sent a PDF of the book saying, here's something that I think of people who personify courage, and I think of you. And sometimes courage and I never heard back. Nothing. It just went silence. And then a couple of months later, actually, in my inbox is an email saying, here, this is how I experienced your book, and this topic is, and it's I then asked for permission to use it as a form, but I had two thoughts about it, because the one page he distills courage better than I think I do in the whole book. So I suddenly had ambivalence, like he took the essence of what is courage and he connects it to compassion, he connects it to wisdom, and as a tech person myself, so it was interesting listening to your last guest, because my undergrad was in computer science, and my first job was at Microsoft in the 80s. And I built an AI agent with an MIT professor in the late 80s, which was a couponing analyst to advise on couponing. So all this agents, not new news to me. But anyway, so that was my story on the Dalai Lama. And I think I feel that the world today is looking for heroes, looking for courage.
Yes, we need heroes. We need more heroes out there, people that stand for something in the world of good. So
yeah, and even in technology, I think there was a time when we had really kind of pioneering people who were defining technology as a force for good. If you look back at Steve Jobs or you look at Bill Gates, their whole idea was, can technology enable humans to live better lives? I think AI has the huge potential to do that. But are we framing it that way? We're framing it as it'll help you cut costs, it'll help you swap out these jobs. But I don't see many people talking about AI as a force for good. It is going to make humanity better, the way the early technology pioneers were talking about it. It's now framed more as a kind of ROI story, which it is, which is good. I think, don't get me wrong, I'm a business professor. I get that. But, I'll tell you how I link into courage and what's happening in technology today. If you look at my book, the word courage, first of all, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is taking action in the face of fear. So let's get this out of the way. Hollywood portrays James Bond, Jason Bourne, Rambo, all these characters as fearless characters and say that's courage. That's kind of the image we develop, kind of mental model. Courage is actually resourcing yourself in the face of fear. So let's get that out of the way, first of all. The second point you need to understand is, where does fear originate? Fear is a primal human emotion hardwired in the human brain, in the amygdala, right? Fear originates in uncertainty. Uncertainty is not the same as risk. Risk is where you know the distribution of outcomes. Uncertainty is I don't know. And let's be very clear. As much as we understand technology roadmaps, I don't think we have a clear roadmap of where AI is going and how fast it's going. So there's more uncertainty than even risk management involved over here, right? And there's also geopolitical uncertainty, there's health uncertainty, there's environmental uncertainty. There's the reason why in earnings calls in the last year, CEOs have used the word uncertainty 3 times more than they did. So it's everywhere. Now, uncertainty triggers loss of control, which triggers then fear. Think early days of COVID. Think great financial crisis. Think tech meltdown in 2000, if you're old enough to remember that, right? So uncertainty activates fear. Fear, everyone says fight or flight. Ain't fight or flight. It's freeze, flight, occasionally fight. So now let's translate that into the context of technology and what's happening in the disruptive world we're living in today. It's normal, natural for us to experience fear. It's kind of scary. We don't want to admit it. No one is going to say, have you met a leader saying, I'm kind of scary, guys. I don't know what was going on. And we're going to kind of like navigate our way into the fog. But it is scary. The question to ask is, how can we resource our way to act through the fog? That is courage. Now let's take AI even just to continue the conversation there. One of the resourcing I talk about in my book, I call it comprehension. It's based on research by a University of Michigan professor, Carl Weick. He studied firefighters. And what he said was that a lot of times when people don't know what to do, like entering a building with a fire, the temptation is to wait till you have all the information. But firefighters can't do that. So what do? They look outside, they form a hypothesis, right? Is there anything that's going to is combustible? Are people needing rescue? How much smoke is there? Is the building going to collapse? And then they enter the building slowly.
Sure.
And as soon as they enter, they gather more data and then they revise their hypothesis. And so the punchline is acting your way into knowing. You don't have to know before you act. And that, I think, is the punchline for where we are in the tech world today. You got to act, take small steps in. Remember, Aristotle distinguished reckless from courageous. Reckless is I'm all in. I'm going to build an agentic model. I'm going to devote all my resources. I'm going to pop in a bunch of money. That's like a firefighter running into the building without knowing what's going on. Courage is deliberate action, walking into the fog, acting your way into it. So that's one of the examples I use. I have 9 such C's. This is one of them. But I thought I'll just get you into the conversation.
So, Professor Gulati, taking your formula of uncertainty plus loss of control equals fear, and keep it in the area of artificial intelligence. My company's headquarters is in San Francisco. If you stand in the streets of San Francisco, in the city, you can count to 10 slowly. 1, 2, 3. By the time you get to 10, you're likely going to see a car go by you without a driver. There's about 800 Waymos in San Francisco. Yep. They just surpassed Lyft drivers. So 45,000 Lyft drivers, 800 Waymo. Waymo just surpassed Lyft. Now you have Amazon Zoox in the streets. You see that as well. Cybercab from Tesla is coming. And now Uber announced a partnership with Volkswagen with their Moya autonomous vehicles. So a year from now, you can count to probably 5. And you're going to see multiple cars, different manufacturers without drivers. It's scary. It's exciting because there are 3 million Uber and Lyft men and women that make their profession ride sharing. There's millions of truck drivers. And there's no question loss of control and uncertainty when you see in a busy city all these autonomous vehicles driving safely. There's been 0 fatality with Waymo in 8 years without a driver. So the positive externalities is that there's 14 million men and women in the US that are over the age 80. They've lost cognitive motor skills, so they can no longer have agency to operate a vehicle. 5 million men and women have epilepsy, uncontrollable seizures. 4.5 million have loss of vision. So there'll be tens of millions of US men and women that can now take advantage of vehicles, and their handicap or disability is not going to prevent them where they have agency. So are you saying when we talk about stories of emerging tech, we need to have the courage to talk about this balanced negative externality, positive externality, in order to limit the fear that we have of new technology? How do you talk about autonomous vehicles, for example, knowing that there's evidence there are going to be men and women who are not going to have jobs in the near future operating vehicles?
Great question. I think it's important to understand, first of all, there's an old saying, you got to name it to tame it. Right? So, you got to first acknowledge this is going to be scary. Guys, this is uncharted territory.
Yeah.
We're not quite sure where this is going to go, but sitting still and waiting and doing nothing is not an option.
Totally.
The human tendency is going to be to freeze, right? Or duck, or try to avoid and say, this too shall pass, or let's wait and gather more information. You're going to have to move into this world, into this brave new world. And I think the intent should be that how are we going to navigate? Now, I want to tell you another C in my courage story that I think is really important here to understand. I call it confidence, but I am not kind of a fan of that word. And it comes from, you live in San Francisco, it comes from a research by a Stanford psychologist. His name was Albert Bandura.
Oh, yeah.
Bandura wanted to study how do you build up confidence in people. And he was looking at these, he said, okay, I'm going to take, and it was building off of research done in World War II on the most scary jobs in the British Army, which were bomb disposal and paratroopers.
Wow.
And researchers were embedded with them, and they found that they were scared to do their jobs. But over time, they somehow resourced themselves to dampen their fear and do the job, even though the job was scary and possibly fatal. So Bandura wanted to look at people who were terrified of snakes to see if he could convince them to touch and hold a snake. And not just any snake, but a
I couldn't do that. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it.
Okay?
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, but he recruited students who self-identified as terrified of snakes, meaning they call them ophidiophobes.
Yeah.
And over the next several weeks, it's classic exposure therapy, showing them videos and, and this is a harmless snake. It doesn't bite. It can't do anything to you, but it was 6 feet long. It was looking, it's a big snake. Anyway, about half the kids dropped out. The other half did it.
I would have dropped out.
Yeah.
The other half did it. But what is interesting is what happened to those kids after they did it. A couple of weeks later, when they looked at these kids afterwards, they expressed a generalized sense of liberation, a kind of a can-do mindset. I can do it. And Bandura called this self-efficacy, that there is this general idea, I can do anything. Now, if I can do snakes, I can do anything. And I'm sure you've seen many entrepreneurs who have this kind of can-do mindset. They say, okay, yeah, looks impossible. We're running out of cash, but you know what? We're going to find a way. Can do. I think, you know what we're going to need? So I have a whole chapter on how do you cultivate can do, building off of Bandura's work and other people's work.
I love that.
We're going to need a lot of can do in this world of the brave new world of the unknown. Sure. What skills are drivers going to need? What is going to happen to vehicle ownership? Just think about the auto companies, because, some state data shows that on average, a vehicle gets used 10% of the time.
At most.
At most.
Yeah.
But Dr. Gulati, the coolest part is what Elon Musk did with the RoboCab. Not only does he take advantage of the fact that you're not using your car, you can buy a car to put into the market. So he's taking the capital off of him. So he's like, you pay for the car that I built, you put it into the market, you can make some money and I'll make some money, and I don't have a cash flow issue. It's hilarious.
Yeah, his vision is that true wealth is making money while you sleep. So when you go to bed, insert your autonomous vehicle into the robo-taxi economy. By the time you wake up, it's delivered 4 or 5 passengers. It's made you money, passive income. And so it's a brilliant way of tackling this from a monetization strategy.
Now, having said that, the answer is going to depend, because there are multiple models competing over here.
Sure.
Yes. Right. And this is what I find interesting is, so you've got here the Musk model where he owns the hardware and he owns the software, and he wants to be the vertical stack, the closed garden model where he owns the entire value chain. Then you have the other ones, which is more of a disaggregated value chain, where you say it's the software guys, the Google guys saying it's me.
Google versus Apple.
Amazon saying, oh no, it's me. Then you have Volkswagen and the auto company saying, I want a piece of the action. I can't do exactly Tesla, so I'm going to partner. And then you've got the Uber and Lyft who are like, what about me?
Right.
I have the customer relationship right now, so I got a piece of this action.
Right.
How this value chain now think about it. Is this going to be scary? Are you going to need to have guts? Who's going to win? What I've come to realize.
Only the bold.
Thank you for the shout out. But I want to just say one thing is, it was interesting. Aristotle said, not only did he distinguish reckless from courageous, he said something that Winston Churchill then said, and Maya Angelou said, courage is the master virtue that unlocks all human virtues.
So true. So true.
Winston Churchill also said, fear is a reaction, courage is a decision. I wasn't going to study courage. I study strategy and organization and effectiveness. So why am I writing this? Because I have a course on turnarounds and transformations of businesses. And I had all these leaders come to class, one in another San Francisco story, Chip Bergh, CEO of Levi Strauss, who turned around Levi's.
Yep.
Right? A nearly bankrupt company with a $2 billion debt overhang when he joins there and really failing fast. Or Mike Mahoney. And by the way, he totally crushes it and takes them public and does a whole bunch of good stuff with them. Mike Mahoney joins Boston Scientific, almost dead company, right? In fact, he hires a consulting firm to advise him whether he should take the job that he's been offered as CEO. They come back and say, absolutely do not go there. Don't touch this company. It's failing. It's going to go bankrupt. Right? They had done the second worst acquisition in history after AOL Time Warner. Wow. Right? And it had already gone down from a $50 billion company to a $4 billion company.
I know.
He joins there.
Like everything.
Today, $150 billion company.
Wow.
So wait, this was your old turnarounds class, right? This was your old turnarounds, like entrepreneur management turnarounds class, if I remember, right?
Yes.
I'm Boston based. So after listening to you, Professor Gulati, I want to come take your classes. I'm 15 minutes from your HBS.
Designing, executing corporate revitalization has never been more important. That is the class to take, right? Especially in an AI world. Not that we're pimping your classes. But
do students come and thank you? Do students come and thank you and say, listen, Professor Gulati, you've made me more courageous, more bold? Because I can sense the way you describe your work, this joy that emanates from your answers. It must be wonderful to shape men and women of the future, leaders of the future, where they take your classes and they have agency and confidence to do more, stretch more, be more.
Well, I have to make a confession also. I think I learn more from my students than they learn from me.
I love that.
It is the test bed. I mean, I would never have thought of courage were it not for my students. When I would ask them, like after I would let the CEO leave, I'd say, tell me what your reactions to this story are. We did this case. We had the protagonist in class. And they introduced me to the language saying, my God, I would never have done what he did. I wouldn't have taken the job. He's got to be crazy. Right? And I'm like, oh, okay. And I said, well, what did he have to do? They said, like, that must have been scary. There was multiple moments when this thing could have gone anyway.
So I wanted to go back to your snake example, right? You have one of the C's, which is clan. So now you've created a clan of folks that did it, right? Is that where you were trying to go with that?
So that now what happens is the first 2/3 of the book is at the individual level, individual courage. And the examples I've given you are all about kind of how individuals can resource themselves to be courageous. In the last third, I talk about organizational courage.
Institutional courage, yeah.
How can you take this to the team and even to your organization? Now, I found interesting, businesses translate the word courage and they don't say, well, let's be more courageous or let's be more, they'll say bold sometimes. In fact, 78% of companies today in the Fortune 100 have the word courage or bold in their annual report / earnings calls. This is kind of suddenly entered the vocabulary. Nobody ever talked about courage, bold in business really that much. They talk about winning. So Boston Scientific talked about winning spirit. And that's what the CEO said. Mike Mahoney said, look, we had to build our strategy. We had to build our organization. We had to do this. We had to do all the things you teach in business schools. But there was something else we needed, which was this winning spirit. Now, to get a winning spirit, you need a winning team. To have a winning team, what I call a clan, is you got to really buy in. And I actually got this idea from sports because I started looking at sports coaches of team sports, football in particular. And what Pete Carroll, talked about was that the mantra for the team in the Seahawks when he was there was, I'm in. I'm in. And then the question was, who are you playing for? Are you playing for yourself? Which is what a lot of football is, because highly transactional business, they trade players like commodities.
Sure.
But here he said, I want you to play for each other. I want you to play for the team. I want you to play for the fans, and I want you to play for me. And by the way, if I can get you to play for something bigger than yourself, you're gonna do more. You're gonna put more out there.
I love that.
That I thought was interesting. That's clan. How do we create collective buy-in? Because when you get buy-in, you get a form of energy that is way more than what you get, which is entirely. Yes, you get energy from self. Let me be very clear.
Sure.
Personal incentives do drive human behavior. We know that for decades. but you can really crank it up if you layer onto that. In the Marines, when people ask Semper Fidelis, you don't fight for yourself or even for the country, you fight for each other.
Yeah. I
love that. Is what I think.
I love that. Others oriented, people that are others. So my last question to you, Professor, is how much does generosity play into fueling courage? You had a courageous moment where you felt that I'm going to send my book, I'm going to send a PDF to His Holiness. That's also a form of generosity. You shared your wisdom with no expectations in mind. The world doesn't owe you anything, but you were courageous and you were generous enough to share your work, again, with no expectations. Do you feel that healthy courage and being bold where you're others oriented needs to have some element of generosity where you're more of a giver than a taker? And that's when you can create that clan, that institutional courage and willingness for people to buy in. You have to have some level of generosity, or is that not a necessary ingredient?
It's a great question. I honestly, it's amazing you made that connect, because I had not made that connection. But as I listen to you, absolutely, you make a very plausible point that having an other direction, other orientation can give you courage to do things. I mean, if you look at Alexei Navalny, he sacrificed himself for a cause, but there's something bigger behind the generosity. Let me get to, which unfortunately ties back to my previous book, but I think is important. Purpose.
Deep purpose.
When you have a purpose orientation in your life, when your organization has a purpose orientation for the enterprise, it unlocks a form of energy that gives you the courage to do things you otherwise wouldn't have. Right? If you think about some of the people, I mean, Brandon Say, this guy is working in a dance hall in California when this mass shooter shows up.
Yeah.
And suddenly he finds himself. This is a guy who ran away from every single fight ever. He said, I never got into a fight. I ran away. Right? In fact, he and his best friend at one point were joking around saying, if we ever saw a mass shooter, what would you do? They both agreed they would run or hide. And next thing you know, he finds himself fighting with the gunman and somehow manages to pull the gun away from the guy. When I asked him why, he said, my grandmother started this place. My mother worked here her whole life. They both passed away. I'm the custodian. They're up there. And if they see me hiding under a table, I couldn't do that.
Wow.
So, he felt this deep responsibility.
Wow.
So how do you create this felt responsibility? And I think some entrepreneurs are masterful when they create this kind of mission orientation. It doesn't about save the planet, or people frame purpose as a left-wing conspiracy to be ESG, CSR. No, you can have a purpose to transform a market.
Sure.
We're going to change the way the world does X, right? So whatever that transform, whether we're building agent, we are building a new agentic market, we're going to do something. I talked to a CEO who talked about building intelligent commerce. And the way he described it, he was like on a mission.
Yeah.
He's like, we're going to really change this. And I'm willing to bet my firm on this.
I love that. I love
so
that.
How do you think that's
you've inspired all of our audience want to take your classes. I don't know how we're going to do this. We're going to have to scale your classes to our audience. That's amazing.
Well, hey, to wrap this up real quick, the Courage Playbook, how do people access that? How do they get going with it? Is there something they need to do differently to be there?
Well, look, our good friend Vala has the book up there, but you can always go to my website, ranjaygulati.com, and there's excerpts from the book in there. On LinkedIn, there's a newsletter where I've been, since the book got written like a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
so I have fresh thinking I've added into, I keep posting that now. I'm trying to put the information out there for anybody to use. The latest Harvard Business Review, is the cover feature is about courage. And I have an article in there. So there are, my hope is that, the world needs courageous people, right? Uncertainty naturally activates fear. And we need to learn to live with that fear, tame that fear, outwit that fear, and take bold action. So That's my wish.
And using one of your terms, this will let you invest in growth during uncertainty. And that's really what it is. The courage. You just looped it around, which is awesome. So
thank you.
Professor Gulati, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate that. I think we've got a lot of insights here. I think folks who haven't had a chance to look at it should definitely read this book. It is timeless. Ranjay Gulati, Harvard Business School professor, social scientist, and author of How to Be Bold, The Surprising Science of Everyday Courage. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
What a pleasure. Really enjoyed it. My
God,
I can see why you guys are great. So, and you make a great tag team here. So,
thank you. Thank you for helping us be bold and courageous and generous. Thank you so much. Thank you.
What a pleasure. Well, look forward to. Yeah. Is there a recording of this that I can put out there as well? I'm happy to.
We will have all that for you immediately afterwards. So
it'll be in your inbox shortly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Happy Friday. Happy Friday.
Wow. I mean, listen.
I think we should get him for our CEO summit. This is the guy.
What? We both guessed we could have talked the entire hour, but Professor Gulati was just incredible. And what an important moment. This convergence of uncertainty, politics, climate, government, wars, new emerging tech, future of work. Like, if there's no better time to build that courage muscle and to be bold. And I'll tell you what, the next book, I'm going to send the PDF to the Holiness. I
had to ask. I mean, I was like, this is incredible, dude.
I mean,
this is so incredible.
That was incredible. Anyway, as you know, if it's Friday, it's DisrupTV. Because of our U.S. holiday Thanksgiving, we're not going to have our show next Friday because Ray will be in a coma after the feast he's planning to have. So we're not going to be able to get him on Friday. He's in a food coma for at least 48 hours. So we will reconvene in 2 weeks for episode 420.
Wow. Look at this group.
CEO of Babel Street, and Mukund Gopalan, a global chief data officer at Ingram Micro, Mukund is also an AI 150 exec Constellation Award and recognition, and Goldie Chan, one-stop the Oprah of LinkedIn and author of The Personal Branding for Introverts. So I can benefit from it. Ray, who's not an introvert, will have to just listen in, but I will certainly benefit from it as a president of the Introvert Club. So if it's Friday, it's Disrupt. Thank you so much for all the authors you recommended for us to have on the show. We will reveal in December our top 25 books of 2025. I have a suspicion that some of the authors we spoke to today might be on the list, but anyway, we'll have that reveal.
We will duke it out over the Thanksgiving holidays.
Duking it out because we've got 75 plus authors we got to go through to narrow to 25.
They were all wonderful.
I know this is the hardest part of the year for us. This decision for me is total agony, but I enjoy the process. Anyway. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone, those who are watching in the U.S., and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Happy Friday, everyone.
That was awesome.
It is awesome.
My God, the professor was incredible. Marty was incredible.
I'm trying to figure out how to end this stream. I don't know how